your CEO, Alex Karp, as you know, has said on one occasion that the company exists on occasion to kill people. He published his manifesto not very long ago, in which he said, and I quote, "The West's dominance comes not from its values, but from its superiority in applying organised violence," among other things. Yes, he's a Democrat. Yes, he's funded Biden and Harris, but he says things like that make people uncomfortable. What do you say to that?
He is outspoken. That is definitely the case. But I also think he, as a private citizen, is entitled to have his own views. And I think we can make a separation between what are the personal views of an individual who works for a company from what the company represents. And I think it's dangerous when we elide those things, because in the end it comes back to, is the company delivering? Is it doing what the government has contracted it to do? In our case, the NHS has contracted us to help make patients' lives better. It means getting more operations. It means getting people discharged from hospital faster. And I think that's what we need to be judged on, not on the views of any individual that works for the company.
But when they are his personal point of views, but he is talking about the company and saying the company exists on occasion to kill people. And the problem is your software is used in Iran and potentially Gaza, where it is killing people.
And it's also used in Ukraine, it's used by NATO, it's used by the British Armed Forces. The origins of the company were in defence and intelligence, and we remain very proud of that.
But do you see that's the issue, isn't it? When he says our company exists, yes, to kill people. It's quite a frivolous thing to say when your software is being used to target and kill people, in particular in Iran, where on day number 1, as you know, a school was blown up in Minab with wrong targeting data, and we do not yet know whether or not your company was at the heart of that mistake.
And I understand why, when someone uses words like that, it makes people feel uncomfortable. But I don't think it's frivolous. I think it's meant very seriously. And in fact, it's a reflection of how seriously we take these things at Palantir. We know that our software is used to do some of the most important, dangerous, consequential things, whether that is on the battlefield or, frankly, in a hospital operating theatre. And so the bar for Palantir's engineers is very, very high, and we take that extremely seriously.
But why is it okay, though, to say that sometimes our software will kill people? And the idea being that he was okay with that. Is that okay? Because doesn't that go to the heart of your problem here in the UK? You're hearing it time and time again, that your software and the company's values and the things that your bosses say don't adhere to British values. It is a value thing.
So I think our armed forces deserve all the support they can get. And we provide and have provided our software to the British Armed Forces for well over a decade now. And in defence, we can talk around these issues, but sometimes I think it benefits everyone to be very frank about how the software is used and what it's used for. And I don't think we should shy away from that.
But what if your software gave the wrong data that ended up killing over 150 kids in a school? That's the heart of the issue here.
Well, on that specific example, we can wait for what the American government makes public about how that incident came about. We were not involved. I think to suggest that Palantir bears some responsibility for what happened there is wrong.
Is it? No, genuinely, because don't they
that is my understanding. I am not obviously read into the details, and we need to wait to find out from the American government fully once the investigation has taken place. However, what I would say is our software is the audit trail for these things. So it tracks end to end every bit of data, every individual who's seen that data, every decision that's taken as a result of that information throughout the whole life cycle of the decision on the battlefield. Now, if you go back in the past, we talk about the fog of war. You think how these decisions have been made in previous conflicts from the Second World War onwards. How many mistakes are made, how many misunderstandings occur, how easy that is when you don't have the information you need at your fingertips, you don't have that full visibility. What our software does is provide that visibility today. So it doesn't mean you can prevent errors from occurring. Humans will always make mistakes. But what you can do is understand exactly what information they had when that decision was made. And that's, I think, a very important step in, frankly, making war a more transparent and a more auditable thing.
But just so our viewers are clear, Maven, the system that is embedded in the Department of War in America that they use on the battlefield. They were very open about that at the time. Your system does provide them with targets. And one of those targets might have been that school where those children were killed. We don't know the outcome of the investigation, but it's not wrong for us to ask that question of you.
Well, I think it's important to make a distinction about what they're using our software to do. Our software is not being used to take the decision. It is always a human who makes that decision. What they are doing is using our software to sift through the mountain of information that exists about the battlefield. Images from satellites, strings and strings of numbers, billions of rows of digits coming off radars. How do you start to synthesize that, make sense of it, so that someone who's having to make, frankly, a life and death decision has all of the information that's available at their fingertips when they take that decision? And crucially, that is all captured and auditable in a historic record that can be checked forever.
But you provide the list of targets, no?
So our software is used to generate a list of targets, but it is not Palantir that makes the decision. It's always a human.
No, but you could have provided them with that target, and that target has then ended up.
So our software is used to generate the targets, but it's not Palantir providing the targets.
Right, but the list of targets has come from Palantir. So it could end up in this investigation that you gave them that school to hit erroneously. It
would not have been Palantir that gave any target. It would be the software in which the target was identified, prioritized, and prosecuted. So that workflow, if you like, is what our software supports. But it's not the decision-making engine. That's always a human.
But are you worried about that? Are you worried about your company's involvement in that horrific mistake?
Well, like I said, I am not read into the details, and we need to wait to find out from the American government what happened there. So I don't know, frankly, whether we were or were not involved, and I'm waiting to hear, like everyone, what the results of that investigation are.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that is a classified matter that therefore only a cleared US citizen would ever have any access to, and I imagine it's also a very closely held matter within the US military.
There's some controversy as to whether or not your software has been used in Gaza post-October the 7th. Was it or was it not used?
So this is, again, another example of some of this misinformation that circulates online. So, I mean, as you'll know, there were 2 systems that are reported to be used by the Israelis in Gaza for targeting purposes, neither of which we're involved in.
So your software was not used categorically in any post-October the 7th operation in Gaza?
So the 2 systems that have been publicly reported to have provided the targeting in Gaza, neither of them use Palantir software.
But Israel and the IDF do use Palantir software?
That's correct.
Is it the case that they might not tell you that they're using it in operations in Gaza? Would it not seem unusual that they weren't?
I can give you an example of the kind of work we do support. Well, our software was used to identify, track and locate missing hostages.
But had nothing to do with tracking down terrorists?
Neither of the 2 systems that were used for targeting used Palantir software.
So you can say that categorically?
Yes.
But you do know it was used to track down hostages?
Yes.
Okay. And then the obvious other very controversial use of your software, as you all know, is immigration enforcement in the US, which many the world over saw as being brutal and inhumane. What's your view on that? Are you comfortable with your software being used as part of that operation?
So I think the important thing to remember is Trump was elected in 2024 with a big democratic mandate to pursue an immigration policy, which he has pursued. So that was tested at the ballot box in America, and the overwhelming view of the public in America was support for that policy. We have worked with ICE since President Obama was the person who first gave us a contract with ICE, and that work has continued under his leadership, under President Biden's leadership, under presidents of both parties. The world that you're describing, where I might be uncomfortable with doing that work, or Palantir might walk away from doing it, is one where, in effect, unelected, self-appointed bosses of tech companies would be deciding which policies a democratically elected government can or can't pursue. I don't think that's our role.
But would that not be your company taking a moral stance, putting morals over profit, as some people would see it? That if you see that your software is being used to go after people based on their immigration status, and in some instances to be shot dead in the street. Is there not a moral judgment there for Palantir?
I don't want to live in a world where unelected, self-appointed tech bosses get to decide which policies a government can or can't pursue, where that government is democratically elected and subject to the rule of law. And I think in America, there are many concerns about the Trump administration, but I don't think anyone is yet arguing that America has ceased to be democratic or ceased to be subject to the rule of law.
I mean, some people are arguing that.
They are arguing it, and it will be tested in the courts. And I think that's the appropriate place. Again, I don't think issues like that should be resolved in company boardrooms. They should be resolved at the ballot box and in courtrooms.
But at no point when you saw that and saw what was going on and the horror that was felt about that around the world, at no point did that make you and Mr. Karp and people that run this company feel uncomfortable?
Absolutely, of course it did. We had a very live debate internally about it.
And what was the nature of that debate?
Well,
should we or should we not have our software running this show?
I think, like everyone who watched those videos that circulated on social media, impossible not to have a visceral reaction to them. But we need to be able to detach ourselves from that and say, whatever.
Why do you, though?
Well, whatever I might feel personally, it is not my place to decide whether that policy is correct and whether what happened was lawful or not.
But it is if it's run on your software. You do have a decision. You could say, end of contract. We cannot
But then you are
allow this to happen in our name, because it was
But
your
then-
name
but the-
became, you became famous at the beginning of this year, partly because of that.
But then I think we would be countermanding a decision that was taken at the ballot box. We would be, in effect, calling time on democracy. And I think that's an unbelievably slippery slope.
But the American people, for the large part, or many of them, did not approve of the immigration crackdown. Yes, they voted him in democratically because he said that he would bring down immigration. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to bring down immigration in the way that he did and in what subsequently unfolded on the streets of Minneapolis.
And
did you?
You,
Did
you, may,
anybody?
you may be right about that. But again, I think the accountability for that has to rest in the ballot box, not in a company boardroom. I don't think it's appropriate for unelected, self-appointed tech bosses to decide what is democratic or what is lawful.
But do you understand when people look at you and say, you're choosing profit over morality here? Is that a fair criticism?
No, I think I would reject that strongly. I think we are...
Because you're making money off the back of this crackdown.
Well, we are standing for democracy and for the rule of law. We're standing for what
But
I
what's
think is...
democratic about immigrants, migrants being gunned down in the street in broad daylight?
Well, what would be profoundly undemocratic would be for a company like Palantir to decide unilaterally that it won't support a policy that has widespread democratic support in the United States. I think that would be to undermine the very fabric of Western values, which is built on liberal democracy and the rule of law.
Your grandfather's obviously Oswald Mosley. Do you think in any way that you're being unfairly judged because of him and because of your family history?
I don't see what relevance my grandparents have to me or what I do.
Well, he was a famous fascist.
Well, I would like people to judge me on my merits and not make assumptions about me based on who I might be related to.
I agree with you, but do you think they are?
I think that's a question for other people.
Louis
Thank you.
Mosley, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
To us.
Great.